Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. And thanks for watching. I'm going to do my G-Day, the Georgia spring game preview today. Talk about some of the experiences of being at G-Day at the spring game for those of you that have never been. And, of course, what I'm looking forward to, some of the players I want to see, things I'm excited about seeing this year at Georgia's spring game. Let's go. Okay, now let's start with the obvious, right? And work our way down. Justin Fields. Anyone that's going to this year's spring game, G-Day game in Athens this Saturday, is looking forward to seeing this kid play, right? And that's nothing new. And this is something that happens at every school, right? You look at Clemson's spring game. What were they most looking forward to seeing? Trevor Lawrence. Anytime you bring in a highly rated player, especially a highly rated quarterback that early enrolls, meaning he'll get to play in the spring game. That's always one of the things fans are looking forward to seeing the most, is how that new quarterback is going to perform. Obviously, Justin Fields brings something different to Georgia's offense, something different than we've had in a long time, really. You have to go back to the early 2000s, the DJ Shockley, Quincy Carter days was really the last time we played a true dual threat quarterback that could, do any type of damage running around with his legs. We've had some quarterbacks I would consider mobile. Aaron Murray was pretty mobile. David Green could get around okay. Stafford, not really. Fromm is pretty mobile. He ran some keepers last year off of the read option and is able to move around in the pocket really well. Jacob Eason, not so much. So we've had some pocket passers that have had the ability to move around when they've needed to, but it's been a long, long time since we really had a true dual threat at the quarterback position. And I'm a big believer in Justin Fields. I really believe that's what he brings to Georgia's offense. You've been watching me for a while. You know, I've been kind of critical of a lot of the quote unquote dual threat quarterbacks in college football over the last 5 or 10 years. In my opinion, there really hasn't been very many true dual threat quarterbacks. There's been a lot of single threat quarterbacks who can run around real good and can't pass. Lamar Jackson comes to mind. I'm not going to run through a list. Nick Marshall at Auburn. Not every quarterback that can run around is a dual threat quarterback. I don't want one of those types of quarterbacks. I've never wanted one of those types of quarterbacks. And that's why I've been kind of resistant to the idea that a lot of Georgia fans have had for years now, that we need a dual threat quarterback. I didn't want to get stuck with one of these guys like Jalen Hurts, who is basically just a running back playing the quarterback position. I want a quarterback who can throw the ball. Now, if he's able to run around and do some stuff with his legs, in addition to having a true Division I elite SEC caliber arm, I'm all for that. And all indications are that that's what we're getting out of Justin Fields. So he's on the top of my list of people I want to see this year at Georgia's spring game coming up this Saturday. Sticking with the offensive side of the ball, and I'll just name two from each side of the ball to keep this video as short as I can. But second on the offensive side of the ball for the incoming guys, Kearis Jackson, 4-star wide receiver that we signed this year. Now, let me say this about Kearis Jackson. I like Kearis Jackson. I like what I see with him coming out of high school, and I think he can contribute to UGA at the wide receiver position down the road. I don't see him getting much playing time this year, and that is not a knock on Kearis Jackson. We just happen to be loaded right now, depth-wise, at the wide receiver position. Yes, we lost Javon Wims, who was a deep threat for us last year. But if you look at returning wide receivers at UGA, you got Terry Godwin, 4-year starter. Mecole Hardman, one of the best slot receivers, I think, in college football. Riley Ridley, who really came into his own in the national championship game against Alabama, having by far the best game of his career. Those are your three starting wide receivers. And then if you look behind those guys, we actually had a good group of wide receivers in the 2017 class that weren't able to get much playing time last year due to the depth at wide receiver. I'm talking about people like Jeremiah Holloman, Matt Landers, one or two others that I think will fill in that 4 and 5 spot at the wide receiver. So not a lot of room, I don't think, on the depth chart for a true freshman wide receiver like Kearis Jackson to come in and make an immediate impact during this upcoming season. But I am looking forward to seeing him play at the spring game this Saturday. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, Devante Wyatt, defensive tackle. This is kind of a weird situation. We signed this guy 2 years in a row. We signed him in the class of 2017. He wasn't able to qualify. He went the JUCO route, had an outstanding year, and we signed him again now for the 2018 class. He early enrolled. He'll be at the spring game, and I do expect him to make an immediate impact this season. I'm not sure if he'll start, but he will definitely be in the rotation of defensive tackles that we move in and out of the game over the course of this season. I think he's a really good player. He was very highly recruited out of high school. He's the best defensive tackle recruit that Kirby has signed since he's been at UGA. Not really a position we've signed a lot of players at over the last couple of years. Kind of a concern moving forward. Hopefully we can fix that in 2019. But anyway, I do think he'll get significant playing time this year. I think he'll be an impact player on that defensive line, on Kirby's defensive line this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do between the hedges this Saturday at the spring game. Number 2 on the defensive side of the ball, Britton Cox. Another guy that I think is too good to keep off the field this year. Probably won't start, although it wouldn't surprise me if he was able to earn the starting position by midway point in the season. The guy, I think, is that good. He's got all the talent and ability in the world. Potential replacement for somebody like a Lorenzo Carter down the road. No doubt in my mind, Britton Cox has the talent and the ability to make an immediate impact this season for the University of Georgia, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do at the spring game on Saturday. Now, I want to mention a couple of guys that I was looking forward to seeing that we're not going to be able to see, and that's, of course, running back Zamir White, one of the best running back recruits in the last 5 or 10 years to come out of high school. This guy's got a generational talent. I think when he's healthy, he has the potential to be the best running back in college football. Whether that happens this year or next year, we'll see. It does look like he's way ahead of schedule in terms of his rehabilitation. If you don't know, he tore his ACL his senior year in high school towards the end of the year. Been rehabbing since then, but he did early enroll. He's been at spring practice. He's been doing some running, even a little bit of light cutting back and forth. Seems to be ahead of schedule. It doesn't look like the knee injury he suffered was as severe as some of the knee injuries we've seen at UGA in years past, particularly Keith Marshall and Nick Chubb. So hopefully he's able to continue that rehab over the summer, and he's ready to go at some point this year, whether that's game 1, game 5, or game 10. Whenever he's healthy, way too good to keep off the field. We won't see him play at the spring game, but I'm sure we'll see him there. Also on that list, Devon Wilson, cornerback, early enrolled. Now, this is a position that we're kind of light at the University of Georgia. Of course, we lost a couple of key contributors from the secondary to graduation in the NFL from this past year's team. We do have some younger guys that are looking to step up in the defensive backfield this year. Deangelo Gibbs, which has some issues of his own that he's working out. Richard LeCount, I think, is going to have a monster year this year. The other cornerback that we signed out of Miami, he's not enrolled yet, but Devon Wilson was enrolled. He also got hurt, not going to play in the spring game. We'll see how serious that is if he's able to participate in summer, fall workouts. We'll see if he's able to get ready to go for this season or not. So those are two guys that probably would have been on this list in terms of people I'm looking forward to see on G-Day had it not been for that injury. Now, outside of particular players, and those are the particular players, I could name the returning guys, but let's just be real. You're going to see vanilla football. Am I excited to see Jake Fromm's progression? Yeah. Word on the street, his arms got a little bit stronger. I'd like to see him complete some passes to the tight ends during the spring game, which I thought was something that was really missing from UJ's offense last year. I tend to think that was more of a scheme decision. Something we sort of did on purpose. Tight ends stayed in to block a lot. Anyway, that's a rant for a different video. So I'd like to see Jake Fromm, see how he's progressed from year 1 to year 2. I'd love to see him hit some tight ends over the middle. Running back wise, who's going to emerge between Harrion and Holyfield? These are two guys that have been at UJ now coming up on their 3rd year. Sort of been relegated to the career backup type role, but of course UGA plays 3, 4, 5 running backs a game, so these kids are going to get their carries regardless of where they fall on the depth chart. But with Zamir being hurt and Chubb and Michelle being gone to the NFL, it looks like DeAndre Swift is the clear number one. I doubt we'll see that much out of him during the spring game, to be honest. There's not really much benefit in risking any type of injury to him. So I doubt we'll see a whole lot of him in the spring game. So I'm expecting to see a lot of Harrion and Holyfield. And which one of those two can emerge as sort of the 1B or running back 2 behind DeAndre Swift until Zamir gets healthy. We also have James Cook coming in over the summer, another highly rated running back recruit that we got out of Florida. I think he was the 4th or 5th running back overall, Zeus being number 1. But he won't be at the spring game. He's not enrolled. So offensively, that's sort of what I'm looking for. Offensive line, this is one of the first years I have no concern about the offensive line at all. I think Georgia's going to have one of the best offensive lines in the SEC, period, bar none. Right up there with the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Auburns, some of these teams that have had elite offensive lines over the last 4 or 5 years, an area where Georgia has really struggled over the last 4 or 5 years. I think that does a complete 180 this year. I'm very confident in the offensive line. So yeah, we can keep an eye on that to sort of try to figure out what do the rotations look like. But I sort of think the starting lineup is kind of set in stone there. On the defensive side of the ball, what are we doing at inside linebacker? You lose Roquan Smith, all-world player, Butkus Award winner, one of the best linebackers Georgia has ever had, period, bar none. You lose him, entered the draft early after his junior year. A real leader of the defense. So on top of all the talent and ability that he had, he brought a real leadership role to the defensive side of the ball for Georgia the last couple of years. And that's something that right now we don't have on the defensive side of the ball. That's something that is usually taken on by an inside linebacker. Last year you had Roquan Smith and Natrez Patrick. Natrez Patrick does come back, and I love Natrez Patrick's talent and ability, but I question he's got off the field issues. I question his ability to be a true leader of the team. I'm not sure how good of an idea it is to designate your defensive leader to a guy who really is one bad decision away from no longer being enrolled at the University of Georgia. He's used up a lot of his chances. If he was a cat, he'd have 1 life left. He's used 8 of them. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I do think he'll start for sure. He's got a ton of talent and experience. Who's going to go next to him on the inside? Last year, we saw a lot of Monty Rice playing that position, a true freshman last year. Nate Mcbride will be a sophomore this year, very highly recruited inside linebacker. I look for him to get a look. Jawan Taylor. We've got some guys we can plug and play in there, but nobody that really we've seen lead in that position outside of Natrez Patrick. It's going to be a new body in there, whoever it is. Monty Rice did get a lot of playing time last year when Natrez was out. We'll see if he's able to continue that into next year and take that starting spot. Something to keep an eye on. Of course, the defensive backfield we talked about a little bit already. We do get DeAndre Baker back. I think he's one of the best cover corners in the SEC, so I have no concerns about that entire half of the field. Whatever side of the field he's on, you can pretty much lock that side down. Richard LeCount, I think, will step up at one of the safety positions. Star position is a position that's sort of up in the air. This is sort of at UGA. This is sort of the nickelback position. It's sort of a hybrid between like a linebacker safety type position. We've played safeties at that position. We've played oversized corners at that position. We've played linebackers at that position at years in the past. We'll see who takes on that role this year. You got J.R. Reed coming back, which had a really good year last year as well. But we do have a couple of open spots in that secondary, so that'll be something to keep an eye on at the spring game. Which guys get filled in with the first team reps, which guys are behind them in the second team reps. That'll be something to keep an eye on for sure. Special teams, nothing to see here. Hot Rod's going to continue to make 99.9% of his field goals from 50 yards in without a problem. This guy's the greatest college football kicker playing today, in my opinion. Hashtag Hot Rod for Heisman. He's the real leader of the team. He's the MVP. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We do have to, do we have to replace that punter? He's gone, I think. So we have to replace the punter, which played really well last year. But we brought in a couple other guys. I think we'll be okay there. Hot Rod's going to handle the kickoffs, field goals, and the extra points. So I think we'll be okay again on special teams. Miko, one of the best return man return men in college football. Wasn't able to break one for a touchdown last year, but every time this guy gets the ball, you hold your breath. I mean, he's this far away from a 90-yard return every single time he touches the ball. I don't have any doubt in my mind that he'll get multiple return touchdowns this year. Not a doubt in my mind about that at all. Now, outside of the game itself, and maybe I should have done this in the beginning, because to be honest, the best part about the spring game, the best part about G-Day is not the game. It's everything that happens around the game. If you've never been to a spring game, if you're a Georgia fan and you've never been to G-Day, if you're a fan of another team and you've never been to your team's spring game, you really need to go. I really can't explain it to you unless you've been. I don't care how many real games you've been to. I don't care how many of the crappy games you've been to, how many conference games, bowl games, playoff games. There's nothing like the atmosphere around a spring game. There's nothing like it. It's probably the funnest game of the year for me to go to, even more fun than regular season games. There are a ton of ex-players at Georgia's spring game every single year. The fact that this game takes place during a time when there's nothing going on in the NFL allows a lot of that to happen. Every single year that I go, I see dozens of ex-UGA players walking around outside the stadium, hanging around the Tate Center, tailgating. Inside the stadium, you'll see them. Now, they'll of course be on the field, but they come over to the hedges. You know, they'll take pictures. You can take pictures of. They sign. I've seen guys stand around for 30, 45 minutes, an hour at a time, just signing autograph after autograph after autograph for the kids and stuff that are there. There's really nothing like a spring game. The tailgating is way more. It's more family friendly. Is not really the right word to use, but it's just more. It's more of a relaxed attitude and atmosphere just surrounding the whole thing, because it's obviously not a real game. There's no opponent to root against for that game. It's hard to explain or describe if you haven't been. If you're a Georgia fan and there's any way possible you can go, I can't stress enough how good of a time you would have at the spring game. It really is unlike anything else you've ever been to. I'm excited. I can't wait to go. The game's at 4 o'clock. I'm planning on getting up there around 10 or 11 if I can. Bringing all the loos. So, it depends how long it takes some of them to get ready in the morning or whatever. But we'll get up there as quick as we can. A lot of people have asked me where I'll be at the spring game, or what my plans are for G-Day. I usually go to the lawn outside of the Special Collections Library, which is right across the street from the Whole Street parking deck. That's usually where I go when I first get there. And that's usually the only plan that I make. Everything else, I usually wing it when I'm there. Sometimes I'll get invited to a certain place while I'm there. Hey, come, I want you to meet these people, whatever. And so I kind of just float around once I get there. I've always made the dog walk in years past. I've always made my way back to the Tate Center, the Student Center, right there by the bridge on the outside of the stadium, in time to see the dog walk for the spring game. I don't see any reason why I won't do that again this year. So as far as I know, I'll be around the Student Center and the Tate Center around the time of the dog walk, which is usually about a couple hours before the game. Gates open at 1 o'clock, game's at 4. Dog walk probably be around 2 or 2:30 would be my guess. Other than that, I'm not real sure where I'll be. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll probably or Facebook, I'll probably be posting pictures or some tweets about where I'm at or what I'm doing or whatever. I might even do a live video or two while I'm up there. And of course, I'll film lots of video for a YouTube video that I will edit and upload the following day, being Sunday, this coming weekend. But anyway, that's it. I hope to see a lot of you there. I hope we have a good crowd. I was there 2 years ago, 93K Day. It should be 100K Day. I'm telling you right now, there was every bit of 100,000 people inside of Sanford Stadium. I don't care that there's only 93,000 seats. You couldn't move in that place. There was people sitting on the stairs between the sections of the stadium. When you went up into the concourse to try to go to the bathroom or get something to drink, there was thousands of people just lined around there in the whole stadium. I've never seen anything like it. And there was probably another 5,000 or 10,000 outside that couldn't get in once the fire marshal shut it down. I don't know if I'll ever see anything like that again at Sanford Stadium in my lifetime. I know Kirby has called for another sellout. I would be surprised, honestly, if that happened again. But I certainly hope that it does. I think it means a lot to the team and the coaches to see that the fans are supporting them, even in the offseason, even at something quote unquote silly as a spring game. I think it means a lot to them. And there's always a ton of highly rated 2000 or next year's recruits, in this case 2019 recruits, at a spring game. And if recruiting is something you're into and you've been following some of these recruits, they sit in the bleachers. They have a certain section in Sanford Stadium down on the lower level, not on the bridge end of the stadium, but on the other end of the stadium. At least that's where it has been the last couple of years. And all the recruits sit there together. So if meeting those recruits or talking to those recruits or getting a picture of some 2019 recruits is something you're into, you'll be able to do plenty of that at the spring game. I've gone up and talked to people. I met Mecole Hardman at a spring game. I mean, I could list a dozen recruits that I've met and talked with at spring games over the years. If that's something you're into, then that's just another reason to add to the long list of reasons that you have to go to this game. But anyway, that's more than long enough for this video. Sorry it's so long. But anyway, I can't wait. I hope to see a lot of you there. Go Dogs!